Hello, everyone. This is Andrea Warner with SEO Brain Trust, and I'm here this evening with Dan Thies. Dan, how are you?
I'm super.
Of course you are. All right, so we've got something really fun in store for you guys. We're going to do week 3, video number 5 with you tonight live. And what this means is that we're going to be here and talking live and stuff. If you have questions, I may hold those to the end tonight, but go ahead and type in full sentences in the question box, and we'll see what we can get to during and possibly after the call as well, okay? And so use that question box, open it up, let me know that you can hear us okay, and this is going to be fun. Dan's going to go over some market case studies with us and a couple other things he wants to make sure that we all get. And so just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Okay, so what we're doing here is part of the first practice module, video number 5, market case studies. And what we're doing here is going over some websites, some businesses, and talking about what kinds of different topics they might be able to leverage to build an audience. And this is one that Leslie and I actually kind of jumped ahead of the course. Actually, did this. Piece of content live before we put Link Liberation on the market, but we decided then that we wanted to let people actually be able to submit more websites after they've gone through the course a bit. And so what I've done is gone through the list of submissions that we had. We had a pretty large number. About half of the ones that were submitted had actually the same sites that we had already covered in the other piece of content, which is in the extras videos. But what I did for this time is go through and pull a smaller number we can talk about a little bit more in depth that are, one, fairly representative of the kind of sites that we're seeing folks working with in Link Liberation, and also some that at least have something interesting to say about them. A lot of the sites that were submitted, we've talked to people on coaching calls, and we've talked to people in the Q&A on the videos and stuff like that. And so we're not going to revisit the ones where I feel confident that somebody's already out there and doing something, unless there's a couple cases here where we pulled them in because I think they're very interesting for everybody to understand kind of the thought process that goes in and what you're trying to do to find an audience. So we're going to talk in this webinar here about market tiers, the concept of first tier, second tier, third tier, kind of revisit that a little bit, how to decide, and talk very briefly about whether it even matters what kind of market tier you're dealing with. Then we're going to go through some market case studies. We're going to talk about what tier they're in, what business they're in, and some topic ideas and other notes that might be helpful to those folks, but also hopefully will be illuminating for everybody else who's watching. And then to make this thing interesting and we're showing up for, I'm going to talk about something that we talked a little bit about in the course, but I decided to give it a cute name and talk about it some more, which is feeder strategy. So let's just keep on going here. So with the first, second, third tier market, a lot of people are trying to figure out, gosh, am I a second tier market, am I a third tier market? And this isn't something that we want you to stop down and not do anything with, because it's not the most important thing. It's just helpful to understand, where you might find that some markets can actually fill a lot of stuff and find, real customers and clients socially, and others can't. So in the first tier market, this is, generally speaking, where people who are interested in information on a topic that you're talking about are also very likely candidates to be prospects, customers, clients, users, and things like that. So, for example, if you're, if you're doing SEO consulting and that's your business, talking about SEO and online marketing, you'll find a lot of business owners that are following, people that are out there talking about SEO and online marketing because they're interested in it. But a lot of folks are also interested in hiring some help with that. And as we look at the way it breaks down with our audience, it's about 50-50 between the business owners who might just as well hire somebody if they could find somebody that they could actually trust, that they felt like knew what they were doing, and the other 30% are the consultants. And so, but even consultants are actually good people to know, because good consultants have more clients than they need almost all the time. And so you end up with, people that will be referring clients to you in that business. If you sell books on how to play chess, you could talk about chess. You can talk about, how to play the game. You can talk about, players, personalities, tournaments, and that kind of stuff. And, you're getting this group of people that are very interested in chess. And I got news for you. They all buy books. So that's a good example of first-tier marketing. And this is sort of the easiest game to play in terms of turning your marketing and promotions profitable, because it's very easy to attract prospects to you. Not everybody that comes in is going to be a prospect, but the subject matter speaks really directly. But there are no bright lines here. It's kind of a spectrum from first tier to third tier, and you're going to fall somewhere in that spectrum. And depending on the topic, you might find that you can target a segment of your audience, and the folks that are interested in that particular topic are very likely buyers, but you've got a whole lot of other people that might buy from you that you're not going to be able to target that way. We would still look at that generally as a first-tier market. You can find a topic that you can talk about, and by talking about it, you're going to sell more stuff. So in second-tier markets, interest in the topic or the set of topics that you're talking about sort of implies membership in a target market segment. Some might become customers, clients, users, or whatever, and some of them might not. So, for example, if we're selling baby shoes, talking about babies and parenting and, how to get your baby to burp or whatever baby people do. I don't know. I never actually made any babies myself. But as I understand it, there's this thing people do, and then it causes babies, and later babies come out. If you're talking about that kind of stuff, not everybody that's reading stuff is going to be interested in your products. And the main distinction here, though, is you're not going to just be talking about baby shoes all the time, because nobody wants to hear about that all the time. So you're going to have to find broader topics and things that are interesting to people that are likely suspects to be customers, but it's not quite as simple as just here's how to make more money on the internet, and finding people that make more money on the internet to buy your product that helps them make more money on the internet. So talking about shoes could work as part of the mix, but nobody wants to read the baby shoe news, and you're going to have to, with something like that, you really got to play it by ear in terms of how much promotion you do. And the thing to recognize is that trying to sell stuff as part of this process isn't necessary, and it's often counterproductive. And so we don't need to really be thinking about, gosh, how do I find my customers by doing this? This isn't about that. This is about ultimately driving traffic, getting links, building authority, without so much reference to how do we sell. And that's an important distinction, that we're not talking about how to get rich by selling stuff on Twitter or Facebook. We're just not. So then you have the third tier markets, which are basically it's sort of a lot of things where it's really hard to find anybody that wants to talk about the stuff you sell, right? And the folks that buy are going to have all kinds of different interests. So things like business to business, manufacturing, corporate type stuff. It really here, the target market's only kind of common interest. The only thing that they have in common is that they're viable prospects for your product or service. But even still, and we'll address a couple of third-tier examples, there are still trade shows, trade publications, trade organizations. There are people out there selling leads, and those leads come from somewhere. Publications, there's some way that people out there are identifying the prospects. And so, in the same way, there are ways that we can target them. We've talked about some of these in the training, and I don't want to step on those things. So things like finding people that are attending trade shows through Flickr and stuff like that. We've talked about that in the training already, so we don't want to beat that to death here. And we also actually talked about that a great deal the first time that we did a market case study session. But LL3 is not about selling stuff. If you can sell some stuff, that's great. But if you can't sell stuff directly through this kind of marketing, you can still monetize that traffic. You're bringing people to a blog, a news site, or whatever. Advertising, AdSense. We have a lot of clients and students that are working this process, and the AdSense revenue alone on their content actually pays for the cost of creating the content and running the process. The point here is to join a conversation, get traffic, start to get people pushing buttons. If your market is highly segmented, and, for example, we have a friend of ours, a client that sells school supplies, and there are distinct segments in that group that are there's people doing homeschooling that need stuff. There are private schools, there's preschools, there's public schools, there's all kinds of different things, and there are also sort of different topics that people in their target audience are interested in. And so the thing is, you have to get started. Just pick something that is something where you can get a conversation going and start talking to people. If you have to build a topic bridge or a demographic bridge, you build one. But in terms of building an audience and getting people engaged and talking and clicking and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter what tier you're in. What we're going to do is going to be the same. The only difference is that the topics may or may not lend themselves to bringing you customers directly. So how to decide and kind of figure out what market tier you're in, and in a lot of cases what kind of topics you want to do. There are 3 questions that we use that are sort of the primary factors here. So first question is, do my target prospects have a common interest, or do certain segments of that? So in the example of if we're selling school supplies and we want to target homeschoolers, there are very specific things that are going to be of interest to all homeschoolers, and there are going to be some homeschoolers that have even more specific interests. So you can find audiences, you can find groups of people that are interested in talking about something. One of the easiest ways is with that second question to figure out where those people are and who they are is look at all the different magazines and websites that are kind of around the target market and the space. There's some place where I could or would want to advertise. If I sell model trains and there's a model train magazine, well, I'd want to put an ad for my model train store in that model train store magazine. If I'm talking about SEO, there are websites and publications where I could advertise, places where basically I would love to be able to either grab all of their audience or a part of their audience and make it part of my audience. And then looking at how many of them, how much reach they have and stuff like that can help you decide what topics are going to be easier to build an audience around. And as we go through this stuff, hopefully you'll see why we are asking that question, particularly as we get to the end of the session here. And then the last question is, are you selling worldwide, are you selling nationwide, or are you operating locally? Because local businesses are almost always, if you have a local service area, we pretty much have to consider that a third-tier market. Because there is no just Frisco, Texas, Twitter, or just Macon, Georgia, Facebook. So with local stuff, you're almost always going to be targeting a nationwide audience or a worldwide audience with your topics. Although there are also plays to be made, and we talk about this a lot as we've gone through and done a lot of different sessions on this stuff. You can also do stuff that's more local news in nature, and we've got some of that to show you here as we go through these market case studies specifically. But the main thing is pick a topic and proceed. You won't accomplish anything by trying to pick the perfect thing and, gosh, there's so many things I could do, I can't decide, or I just don't know. Just pick something. If you can't do any other logic, then just throw a dart and pick something and get moving. You might find that the topic that you've chosen is a little bit harder to get an audience around. You might, to your dismay, after thinking that you're going to get rich selling stuff on Twitter, discover that it's easy to build an audience and they're clicking on getting lots of shares and they're building lots of links, but these people don't buy my stuff. Well, there's lots of ways to monetize the traffic that you're getting, and all we really have to do is get to a state where we can afford to keep feeding the thing content and not be burning money on it like we were before. Well, some of us anyway, who were buying links and renting links and other things like that. So, a couple of the folks that we've covered before, we've actually got half a dozen people that are selling what I would call Western apparel, whether that's belts, hats, boots, and whatnot. There are lots of things that are going to be topics and communities that you can tap into. So there's lots of rodeo fans out there. Well, I wouldn't say lots of rodeo fans out there, but they're easy to find because there are websites and publications and things like that and people that they're following on the web, which you can find and get engaged in the conversation with them. Rural living, same thing, homesteading. Even the doomsday prepper people have websites and stuff like that where you can find them. And so, it's certainly not going to be easy to just, go around the internet talking about cowboy hats and build an audience of people that want to hear all that interesting, fascinating stuff about cowboy hats. So, yeah, that's not a first-tier market, but that doesn't mean that you can't build an audience and bring in some traffic. And, the monetization on that is pretty easy. You can, run ads for your own products on the content, and you're going to sell some stuff there. And you can also mix in AdSense and affiliate and all kinds of other things to help you monetize. We've got somebody that we've worked with a couple times where they sell market research reports. And that's a case where it's a third-tier market, but doing things like talking about industry news and events and stuff like that is a great way to build an audience. And the main reason why that's a third-tier market and not a first-tier market is that the people that are going to be buying, the vast majority of the people that are in the audience are not going to be buyers of, $10,000 a year market research report services and things like that. Target people by topic, target people demographically, but pick something that you're going to talk about and pick some people that you're going to target and then do it. This whole thing is about finding people, engaging in conversation with them, adding value to their lives, and getting them to push some buttons for you. So let's just get into some of them. So this is one that was submitted that I don't believe we've actually covered already. I believe we have actually spoken on a coaching call, but Heather has a business which is a resume writing service. And I would call this sort of a high second tier, that the people that are going to be interested in the topics that you might talk about are at some point in their lives very likely to be a candidate to need a resume, but they're, hopefully not very many of them needing it all at once. And so, topics, things like, job seeking, how to find a job, career advice, continuing education, all kinds of stuff like that. There's all kinds of little vertical topics and things like that that you can talk about, like internships and stuff like that. They're going to target specific segments. So if people coming out of college are a really, really hot market segment for you might talk about things like how to do well with an internship, how to hire interns, and stuff like that. And this is the one I just kind of made reference to. This is one that Paul is working on, and they do market research reports, different kinds of, lots of different, a huge diversity of different kinds of things, but within a relatively small number of industry verticals. And so this is a third-tier market. There's lots of people out there that are easy to find that are interested in getting the industry news. I can find sites just in the pharma industry and Twitter accounts that have tens of thousands of followers and aren't following very many, which, as we'll talk about again in just a bit, is a pretty good indicator that there are real humans out there. So there's definitely a lot of interest out there. It's an easy conversation to get into with relevant expertise. It's not that hard for somebody in the business of producing market research reports to have one or more people involved in finding interesting news, curating that news, doing commentary on it and stuff like that. So should be pretty easy to manage the content creation in-house and to be able to generate a growing audience over time and join in the conversation and contribute something to it and get a lot of sharing, traffic, and links in return. This one is Lawrence's site. It's a local apartment rental locator service. So their target customers are actually in two segments. They might actually have a little bit of a play with the people, the landlords, people that own the properties that they're talking about, in terms of paying for premium listings and things like that. I don't know exactly what the business model is here, but certainly the way that they make money is by getting people who want to rent an apartment to show up, look for one, and go sign a lease and stuff like that. And so what you're hoping to do there is gather those people together if you can. Now, this one happens to be a local business, so there are a couple of different places. One, they could talk about a lot of stuff around living single and dealing with roommates and landlord-tenant law and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be more of a national or a larger audience. They could also talk about lifestyle and events for the particular location where they are. In this case, I think that might actually be a better play because of the location. But also just, things like, if you're living in an apartment, you're probably not part of what do they call the 1% that has all the money. And so, the things like IKEA hacking and, creating a bookshelf out of, $18 worth of things that weren't intended to be a bookshelf rather than going out and buying a $300 bookshelf and stuff like that. Those kinds of things. But it really depends on, knowing more about the market locally and the people that you're trying to target that I know. But that's only really becomes a question if you're worried about how am I going to sell, as opposed to how am I going to build, a property on the web and an asset, an audience that's going to drive links and help us rank better. And in that case, we really don't need to worry about targeting people locally most of the time with a business like this. It just happens to be that locally there are a giant number of people in this particular location. And so actually doing some local news, lifestyle and event kind of news might actually be really effective, and mixing in a little bit of that living single kind of stuff and, talking about, living in this particular location, which is a very unique location. There are lots of ways to do it. So lots and lots of opportunities here. Not the easiest thing to pick something and go forward, but this is the kind of thing you got to do. You've got to pick something and go forward. You actually got to implement and get into action. It doesn't mean that the last thing you'll ever do. It doesn't mean that you can't, and it doesn't mean that you can't try one thing and then say, okay, that's okay, but we could do better with something else maybe and try something else. But what I would strongly recommend everybody do is pick something and proceed rather than trying, gosh, there's 9 possibilities of them all at once. If you're going to do 9 things at once, I hope you've got a lot of people helping, because the only way that 9 things happen at once is that if it's 9 people working on one thing at once. So let's keep moving.
Dan,
yes.
Before you go on, I love this example. I'm really glad that you gave this, because, I've seen people flounder with this kind of a situation. Well, and so who am I going to talk to? But what you showed here is you're not talking to specifically people that are looking for apartment rentals. You're talking to people who are in that realm and are doing things that apartment livers would do. And so you really have to kind of shift your thinking and stop thinking about your product and what you're selling, but think about your customer and their environment. Right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, first tier is easy, right? It's easy because you're going to be able to, sell stuff directly as you build an audience. But first-tier markets can also be very much more difficult to build an audience with, because the path to monetization for people who build an audience in SEO is direct and obvious. And so everybody that's trying to do SEO is out there trying to build an audience. And so, with something like this, you don't have a lot, or at least you don't have the same kind of competition, and particularly you don't have the same kind of well-informed competition. So if you're doing local lifestyle and events news, there might be people, doing websites that do that, and they might make money at it and all that kind of stuff, but they're not necessarily going to be, as fearsome a competitor, and it's quite possible that, sharing traffic between your site and theirs can be a real possibility, because everybody's just making money from the traffic, monetizing the traffic, and not trying to sell something directly. So it's a lot harder for one local event calendar to consider another local event calendar website, some horrible competitor that they must, shun and destroy. Because the fact is, the people that are interested in that are going to read more than one site. And, living with that and turning that lemon into lemonade is something that's often a lot easier to do in third-tier markets.
Okay. So, before you leave market tiers, let me know, because I want to run a quick poll, okay?
You want to run a quick poll?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you run your poll, and then we'll keep going.
Okay. All right. So everybody look at your screen, and just really quickly, just tell us which market tier your business is in. Okay? So just take a second. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Everybody's got that. You're voting like crazy. Awesome. Take just a minute. Okay. About 10 more seconds. Interesting. Dan, you cannot see the results, right?
Probably not.
Okay, well, okay. Okay, 5 more seconds. Everybody there? Okay. There. Do you want to see the results?
Well, we're all waiting for it, yeah.
Okay, there you go. So fairly evenly split. I thought there'd be a lot more tier 2s. Interesting, huh? So that means everybody has a little bit of a different challenge, and some of you need to keep working on figuring out which tier you fit into.
Yeah, again, it's a spectrum. So you know, there are very few cases where you've got kind of a hard line you can draw and say this is absolutely first tier all the way or absolutely third tier all the way. And you know, that second tier is a pretty wide area actually. So let's talk about the next one. This is Shira's site, which is Shira. You need to do something on design. You know, go buy a theme or something. This site does not look professional and it does not look inviting, and I'm sorry to have to say that because nobody ever likes me when I tell them their baby is ugly. But have you ever actually seen a baby, Andrea? I mean, they come out looking like angry turtles. Anyway, okay. And if you've ever been bitten by an angry turtle, you don't want to know what an angry turtle looks like. So my recommendation is just don't make babies. But so Shira's doing what's actually some pretty good content and information for people on self-publishing. She's talking about specific niche areas and stuff like that. But this is very much a first-tier market because it's easy to find writers. And right, you're trying to sell information to writers. It's pretty easy to find writers out there. And so you're looking for topics like self-publishing, stuff that is niche-specific. To the particular publishing platform that you're talking about would be good content for you to create, but don't be afraid to do stuff that's just more about writing and how to write and self-publishing and that kind of stuff. So the topics are pretty easy here. You're targeting writers. And this is one where you can leverage both user-generated content, things like interviews and stuff like that also. So find a writer, interview them about their, what they've learned about publishing, for themselves, what they've learned about writing, what they've learned about self-publishing through this particular platform. Success stories and case studies and stuff like that are going to make, the people that are participants are going to want to go read it. Their friends are going to want to go read it. And so that's the kind of content that's pretty easy to do. You kind of set up as a recurring event. So you might have one that, that's published every Friday. That doesn't mean you do one every Friday. Might mean that you do 4 in one day every 4 weeks, but that's one of those ones where it's it's a first tier market. It should be very, very easy to find these people. And by the way, there are lots of publications and websites for writers. Gosh, just look at everybody that's a fan of National Novel Writing Month on Facebook or following the National whatever I can't say it, sorry, but the National Novel Writing Month thing on Twitter and stuff like that. So there are just plenty of easy ways to find the people, plenty of easy ways to target them with content, and what you've got, if it's any good, should be of interest to pretty much all of them. So let's move on to Tom. And Tom does business coaching. His copy indicates that he's kind of targeting, the startup entrepreneur kind of people. And this is very much a first-tier market, at least in terms of being able to generate leads, I think. But this is one of those ones where it's kind of fuzzy and squishy, kind of like the screenshots that I'm doing here, so that you can't easily identify the website, but Tom can. But the kind of stuff that Tom is talking about is a lot of inner game kind of stuff, which is the kind of thing that I've been spending a little bit more time with, surveying lately. So it's his shtick, his thing, his unique value proposition is about inner game, making yourself more effective and stuff like that. And so good content around that is going to be useful, but it's the kind of thing that people don't know they have a problem until they know they have a problem, and then they're not really out there talking about the problem that they know they have, even though they know they have it. And so you need to mix that in, season that a little bit with things like time management, productivity porn kind of stuff. And for the folks that have already gone through the other webinar session, we looks like I think it did about 10 minutes talking about productivity porn and other forms of porn that don't involve people getting naked and stuff like that. But the idea of productivity porn is, I think Merlin Mann was the first person I saw talking about it, and he had a site on kind of GTD, getting things done, and just a lot of content around managing email inboxes and stuff like that. But when Merlin quit doing that stuff, one of the reasons that he gave for quitting, started talking about it, was that so many people were spending all kinds of time. They were spending so much time looking at stuff about how to be more productive, but they weren't actually getting any more productive because they're spending 2 hours a week commenting on his blog about how to be more productive. But I think the kind of inner game stuff works pretty well. But I think if that's all you talk about, it's going to be hard to build an audience. It's kind of like in the SEO Brain Trust, we talk about SEO up front because that's what everybody is interested in. That's the sexy, that's the sizzle that sells the steak. The meat of what we do is really it's marketing, it's business strategy, it's all kinds of stuff. And SEO is really a small part of the big picture of what we do in the Brain Trust with our clients, but it's something that it's an easy topic that we can build an audience around and get people talking to us, and then some of the other things that they might be interested in and be able to benefit from doing. So sizzle first, then steak should be pretty easy to build an audience for this stuff. Then we got Brian, and Brian does mobile marketing something, consulting services, stuff like that. Brian, it is hard to tell from the front page of your website what you do. You might want to work on that. But this is one that you could approach either as sort of a first tier or as a third tier, and it kind of depends on how you want to play it and what kind of content creation assets you want to do and what kind of relationships you have and all that kind of stuff. You can talk about business topics and mobile marketing and stuff like that, and focus on finding business owners that are interested in this kind of stuff. So, you can find lots of publications and therefore Twitter profiles and things like that that are followed by lots of business owners. Entrepreneur Magazine, lots of business owners and people that are kind of on that cusp there. Great prospects to be clients for mobile marketing services. And so talking about the stuff that they're interested in, sharing other people's stuff that's of interest to that audience, and the stuff that you create and you share is about mobile marketing. So you might talk about everything from hiring to payroll to finding the best space, location is everything, whatever. Let other people on the web write that kind of content and just share links to that and do abstracts and maybe a little bit of commentary on it. Make your feature content about mobile marketing. So gosh, should you do a Groupon for your local business? Well, okay, that's something that a lot of people are going to want to read about, and that's where you get them in and expose them to you as the mobile marketing expert, but also that you can build an audience by talking about a lot of other business topics. So you're going to find that some people are not currently ready. Maybe that pushes this closer to the second tier kind of thing. But the other angle that you can play is just talk to other mobile marketing experts and professionals. Play the third tier. And so build an audience, and this is one where you can either play one angle or you can kind of have, Brian's Twitter profile is where he talks to other people in that business, and then he's got Brian, the persona that talks to business owners. Third tier is, in this case, it's a lot easier to kind of make friends among other professionals in the business and build an audience among those people. And gosh, how do I do a better job of mobile marketing for clients, and how do I get more clients? All that kind of stuff that you can talk about with your peers, other professionals in the business. The great thing is all of these people are, not all these people, but the vast majority of people that are in that marketing professional world, they know what happens when they push buttons. They like pushing buttons. They push lots of buttons. They share more stuff. They link to you more. And so as a link building exercise, playing that third tier angle and talking to your peers a lot, I think it can be very, very effective. But the bad news is that SEO is like the worst way to get marketing clients of any kind, especially SEO clients, because what you end up when you're sitting in search results is a lot of kind of looky-loo and tire kicker, and yes, please spend 2 hours creating me a proposal, even though I don't have any money. Now, there's ways we'll talk about, as we get into the consulting stuff and some of the consulting content that's in the course here, actually selling that assessment. So, we'll do a review of your mobile marketing strategy for $100, and let's at least verify that you have a wallet that you're willing to open sometimes. I don't want to digress into that, but half of our audience here is people that are doing consulting, so I thought it was worth at least discussing that a little bit. So let's talk about James's business. And James has, I'm guessing, a shopping cart that's deployed on top of WordPress, and the shopping experience here is a little bit confusing, James. I think you could probably do better within the platform that you're in, but it would not surprise me if this site doesn't convert particularly well. Anyway, so selling small office furniture, desks and chairs and whatnot, this is definitely a second-tier market. Lots of great topics that you can get into. You can talk about home office stuff. You can talk about small business. You can, kind of the small office, home office stuff, anything those people are interested in, and just pick something that they're interested in, a topic that you can talk about. Freelancing and how to freelance and stuff like that. You could probably do pretty well just by building, an audience around freelance writers, freelance developers, all kinds of stuff. So there's just a ridiculous number of topics. And so again, this is one where the hard thing is picking something and doing it and sticking to it. That's not the easiest thing in the world to do, I know. But if you look at some of the books and stuff that are out there, and there are publications, stuff like that are out there, look for who's doing book reviews of books like Home Office Hell and stuff like that. Those are the kind of folks where you'd want to snatch their audience. Babak, we've talked to already about this phone unlocking website, which I noticed as I was grabbing another screenshot earlier this week, is still just as confusing a site to understand what it is that you're actually getting or doing. And so, sir, you've got to tell people what the heck they're getting if you want them to fill out a form and start clicking buttons and taking action. But this is one of those things that it's kind of a third-tier market just because what they're offering here is so massively specialized that no matter what you talk about, even among people that want to unlock their phone and switch carriers, which is a very, very small percentage of the people that have a phone, even among those people, they're not necessarily going to be all that interested in what you're doing. Because most people that want to do this stuff already know how to do it. So anyway, though, you want to be the place where they go to read those step-by-step walkthroughs and things like that, if nothing else, and so that they can recommend you to people that don't know. But so, in terms of topics, we're going to, talk about Gadget Geek stuff, talk about, particularly unlocking, jailbreaking, mobile operating system news, device news, reviews, and, teardowns. Every time somebody does a teardown of a new device, you should be talking about that, at the very least abstracting and grabbing an image. And, the more of that you can do, the better, because that's the kind of content that keeps you fresh and topical. And, you should be able to build an audience. There are lots of websites and publications and people out there talking about this stuff. And so all you have to do is just contribute value to the conversation, co-opt part of their audience. So Marie's got a website that it's not really designer reading glasses, but fashion reading glasses, lots of different, cool looking reading glasses. Obviously not everyone uses reading glasses. And so, in fact, you can't find conversations out there about people talking about reading glasses very much. I guess it might happen if two people bump into each other and they're both wearing reading glasses. They might say, "Oh, I like your glasses." But on the web, in general, you're not going to find people talking about this stuff. So I look at that as a third-tier market. But you know something about people that use reading glasses, which is that at least a pretty large number of them are going to read stuff. So you might actually want to look at something like book reviews, device reviews, and news. So things like there's this whole ecosystem that springs up around every device, every platform. There's Kindle and there's iBooks, and so you could be talking about all these dizzying array of new Kindles, which one's the right one for you, and gosh, how do I get my kid's book report that he sent me into my Kindle or whatever. There's lots of stuff to talk about in terms of how to use these devices and things like that. So reviews, news, tips, and that kind of stuff. Because the Kindle is actually an amazingly cool device in terms of all the weird and cool stuff you can do with it. Or the other play to make here is just to leverage fashion. So, finding people that are having conversations about, maybe more on the cheap end of fashion in the case in terms of the demographic you want to target here. And then, you're going to be talking about shoes and purses and all kinds of junk and just mixing in some stuff on reading glasses and things like that from time to time. But that's, again, either way, you're not making a play that I'm going to sell a bunch of glasses to these people, because that's just not going to happen. You have to find a topic that you can build audience around, and part of that is about what can I actually create content around, what can I do within my team or within myself, where I can, find stuff that people would be interested in, put it in front of people and build an audience. So,
Dan, before you leave Marie here, can I talk about Howie Jacobson's avatar video?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Okay, so we've included a video that we did with Howie Jacobson where we talk about customer avatars, and we made it so it's available to all of you. And I highly can't recommend highly enough that you watch that video and do the exercise. We made up our little worksheet and added it to the download. And when you actually do that exercise, not just watch it, but do it, things change. That's all there is to it. Because how do you find these people interested in fashion? How do you find these people that are going to be interested in these other areas that Marie could potentially target here? And until you actually do that exercise and write out the things on the document, you're just going to kind of be guessing. But when you really do this, and you find that it's so much easier to talk to people and to have a better idea of where they're going to hang out. Okay, so I'm going to grab a link for that and put it in the chat. And if you haven't watched that and done the exercise, make sure you do that. Okay, everybody? Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, third tier is, let me try to make the challenge of the third tier in terms of, gosh, I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff through Twitter or whatever. What makes that such a challenge? So my wife is a perfect candidate to be a customer for this store because she's got like 20 pairs of reading glasses. She buys another one every week, I think. But I could tell you everything that she's interested in, and you're not going to find her, okay? You're just not going to get her. She's going to search, or she's going to know about you already, but she's, the kind of stuff that she's interested in, you're not going to want to talk about that stuff. And so she's just completely untargetable in the sense as a prospect. But you don't need to target her. You don't need to target everybody that's in your target market. You don't need to target everybody that could potentially be a customer, or even the people that are perfect customers, because in some cases, they're not out there talking about reading glasses. So find other things to talk about. Mention reading glasses every now and then. You're not doing anybody any harm, and just again, pick something and proceed. In this case, this is one of those sites where getting to know Pinterest, if you're going to target fashion and that kind of stuff, making friends with Pinterest is going to be a real good idea. So let's talk about another person that might want to make friends with Pinterest. That's Jennifer, and they sell scented candles on the internet. And when I first encountered somebody who was selling candles on the internet, I think it was 1996 or something like that, and I said, no way, those things are too heavy. Turns out you can actually sell candles on the internet. People will pay the shipping, and they tend to buy larger orders because the shipping and the time and all that kind of stuff. So they'll buy like a whole case of scented candles and just fill their house up with lovely stink. Anyway, I look at this one again. It's another third-tier market. Gosh, are people out there talking about the smell of candles? I don't know. Go check candlesmell.com and let me know if you see anything there. But there are things that you can talk about. So aromatherapy is kind of our topic within sort of a larger set of topics where we're sharing content around things like alternative health. Is the first thing that occurred to me. Home decorating is something that you might be able to play in, although I don't think people use these things for decoration so much as they use them to make their house smell like something. But also the other angle here, and again, depending on how the products are being created and stuff like that, there might be a whole lot around crafts and candle making. So doing, sharing stuff about crafts, being sort of the candle making expert, you might find that you make more money selling candle making supplies on the internet than you make selling candles on the internet. And so, gosh, are you putting your customers in competition with you? Well, not if they're buying their supplies from you. So that's probably the angle that I would try, but I also don't really know enough about the back end of this business and how it operates and stuff like that. They might be getting all these things from a sweatshop in Bozakistan or something like that. But I think that that Jennifer's company actually makes these products, and so that's another way to play. Is actually, gosh, you can buy ours, but I think the play here is to treat these somewhere along that line between arts and crafts. And so that, coming up with some sort of signature designs or, special things that you do with your candles that make people want to buy those. I think over time you can actually build a brand in this, and I don't really see them doing much of that right now, but I think that they can, and I think they can build an audience with content around crafts and candle making and stuff like that. In fact, they might even, on occasion, talk about scrapbooking, which is another one of those human activities that I do not understand. Actually, I do kind of, but I can't believe that it's as big as it is. But Linda's got a site that sells scrapbooking supplies. And this is one of those things where, gosh, unusual for an e-commerce business where you can actually find people out there talking about scrapbooking and crafts and stuff like that. And so it's very easy to find people that need supplies and stuff like that. You could probably just talk about scrapbooking a whole lot and build an audience of people that want to talk about scrapbooking. If you want to extend that a little bit, you can do a little bit more stuff on things like crafts. There's all kinds of demographic and lifestyle stuff that I don't think we need to get into that kind of goes around scrapbooking and who's doing scrapbooking. And it's usually not a solo activity. It's something that people are doing together with their kids and whatever. This is, I understand it. I'm going to go upstairs after this is done and talk to my son and see if he wants to do some scrapbooking with me, or if he'd rather just go out in the garage and lift weights. We'll see which one he chooses. But this, again, is another one where, Linda, say hello to Pinterest if you haven't already, because you've got amazing images that you're producing here. You could very easily create kind of a blog where people can share images, user-generated content, so members of your audience can share images of their scrapbooking projects. Other people can vote on it. Maybe have a little prize of best scrapbook thing of the month or whatever, and let everybody vote on it, and energize your audience and keep them engaged and stuff like that. Well, I think Pinterest is one where, let's just imagine that you had a blog attached to the site that was either entirely or at least partly nothing but people's images of their cool scrapbooking projects, and then you're pinning those things to Pinterest and finding all the other scrapbooking people and getting them to the site to share their own stuff. And this one's one that I don't think you'd have a very hard time building on it socially, keeping people engaged, because it's one of those things that people are very engaged with. You're either all in on scrapbooking, or you look at that giant scrapbooking section in the Michaels store and wonder what the heck is wrong with those people. Why do they want all these stickers and stamps and all this weird stuff? So, but you don't care about people that aren't interested in it. The people that are interested in it definitely makes it a first-tier market. Now, this one is one where they're only servicing a particular country. Not everybody is going to be an instant candidate, but you might find that as you build an audience worldwide that one way or another, you can figure out some way to sell them stuff in other countries. Believe it or not, you can drop ship stuff through, you can do fulfillment by Amazon. There's lots of companies that can actually do fulfillment and put your business in different countries without having to ship every single individual order. But that's all a matter of scale and business model and margins and stuff like that we just don't need to get into right now. So, Andrea, do we have a bunch of questions loaded up about this, or should I talk about the amazing feeder strategy?
There's a couple of people wanting to talk about some other examples, but I feel like you've probably gone through enough case studies for right now. So let's talk about the feeder strategy, because there are some people talking about Twitter and why Twitter and why are we starting with that. And let's get into your feeder strategy.
Yeah, and so, gosh, who should I follow? Well, I thought we talked about this, but let me make it so brain dead simple that you don't have to think at all, at least for a while. Someday you'll have to think again, but in the short term, under certain conditions, you might find that you don't need to think at all for an extended period of time, which means that you can, focus your brain powers of thinking on other parts of your business other than figuring out who can I follow on Twitter. So let me just show you
nice.
an example here. Okay, so let's just say hypothetically that I wanted to build an audience around SEO. How could I do that? Well, the feeder strategy is what, the cute name that we're giving is something we've been teaching forever, which is find out who has the audience. And Twitter lets you do this, right? You can see every single member of their Twitter audience, like by handle. You can go and follow them. You can @message spam them. There's all kinds of things that you can do short of direct messaging, because you can't direct message somebody until they follow you. But and don't start DM spamming people either. But one of the weird things about social is that you have these big brands, these big operations, these, gosh, if I wanted to sell people that like Coke that they want to get Pepsi, I can go on Twitter and find everybody that's following Pepsi. I can go on Facebook and run ads that target everybody that likes Coke. What? Hello? Okay. But they're building a following because they want the traffic and all the other stuff that comes with it. But the flip side of that is you can see their audience. Their audience is not invisible. And so we've got two examples here from, if I just go and Google I think SEO news, you end up finding Site Pro News and Search Engine Land somewhere in the top 10. I just kind of randomly clicked a couple. Site Pro News, once proud producer of great original content. Now, maybe not so much, and I don't want to pick on them because they've really gone from a how-to kind of advice site to a news thing, which is just as well because news was in the name all along. But you can see here, Site Pro News, @Site Pro News on Twitter, 5,175 people following them, and they're following 5,175 people, and they have 5,070 followers. So, well, there's two ways that can happen. I'll talk about that just a bit, but that doesn't happen without them being part of Team Followback. So if you follow Site Pro News, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to follow you automatically. Either that or the other way around is just the same. But what's interesting is that when you follow the followers of somebody who's a member of Team Followback, you're going to get a much higher followback rate. So, gosh, if you've got no audience on Twitter and you're trying to figure out how can I build up my follower stats so that I look credible on Twitter when somebody looks at me and 18 followers, what? Find the news sources, the big fish that are, generally speaking, these are broadcast channels. They're not individual people that are building a following and stuff like that. You might have individual people, but news sites, magazines, stuff like that, news websites, that they're going to have a Twitter presence. They're going to have a Facebook presence too that you can target with advertising, but they're going to be out there. And those that you see this kind of a profile where they're on Team Followback, you're going to get a much higher followback rate if you follow their followers. And that's the feeder strategy. Figure out who's got the audience and follow their followers. Search Engine Land, on the other hand, is following 30 total. Well, and there's nobody at Search Engine Land that's probably watching the Twitter feed of who they're following, just like there's probably nobody at Site Pro News that's watching the Twitter feeds of all the 5,000 and something people that Site Pro News is following, right? There's no way that many people generate too much noise to actually notice anything meaningful by reading what the people you're following are saying. But the difference is SPN is out there following people actively to build a following, and Search Engine Land is not. Search Engine Land is being followed by 136,424 as of earlier today people. Twitter accounts, that is. And so mostly those are going to be actual humans that said, I want search engine news. I'm going to follow Search Engine Land on Twitter. Okay? There's a huge difference there. Now, if I'm going to follow everybody that follows Search Engine Land, I'm going to tell you what they don't need me to be doing. They don't need to be retweeting everything that Search Engine Land says. Well, at least not with a manual retweet. You can do just a button push retweet where if they've already seen it from Search Engine Land, it's not going to show up twice because I did it. But doing the manual retweet, RT at S Engine Land, to a bunch of people that were already following Search Engine Land, I'm not saying you can't ever do it, but if all you do is just ape what they're getting from the folks they were already following, you're not adding any value and you're not going to be impressing people. So let's talk about some notes on this. So the deal with the people that are on Team Follow Back, there's a couple of ways that happens. When you see that profile where, gosh, they're following 5,000 people and there are 5,000 people following them, okay, right, there's some follow back going on there, one way or another, okay? So sometimes it's automatic follow back. So they might just have, some tool that's set up every time somebody follows them that they automatically follow back. That's actually not a bad idea, particularly if you're going to do Twitter advertising. So if you're going to do the kind of advertising to advertise to people to follow you, you almost certainly want to be automatically following back. And the reason why is a lot of people will expect you to do that. Even real humans will expect, well, gosh, I followed them and they didn't follow me back, so I'm going to unfollow them because I feel bad. Okay, is that stupid? Yes, but if you're paying to get followers, follow them back so you don't lose any of them. You might as well. And again, it doesn't hurt you to follow people. If you're following 5,000 people, but only 100 of them are actually interested in you to follow and read what they say, that's what lists are for. You put those 100 people in the list, and when you go to Twitter, you look at the list, not at the giant fire hose of everybody that you're following. But more often, when you see a profile like that, it's built by them actively going out and following people, and then some of those people are following them back, and then if they didn't follow them back, they unfollow them, and all that kind of stuff that you can do. Where you see something like Search Engine Land, where they've got a real human audience, okay? That's a broadcast channel. It's got lots of followers. Do not expect them to follow you back at the same rate. If you go and follow the last 100 people that have followed back Site Pro News, probably half of them are going to follow you back. Maybe more, maybe less, but it's going to be pretty high. And that's a way that you can actually build a more impressive follower count. But those people are not necessarily going to be actually paying attention to what you say as much. And so that matters. That doesn't mean that nobody will pay attention, but by targeting the folks that have the real human audience as feeders, first of all, when somebody looks at your Twitter profile and they look at your recent tweets, it better be good, okay? Or you're wasting your time. But assuming that, I've yelled about quality enough that I don't have to yell at you personally about this again, right? I mean, there's other people that don't listen, and we don't worry about them right now. But just between you and me, if you're doing quality and you're following people that aren't on Team Follow Back, okay? I mean, some of the people that are following Search Engine Land are on Team Follow Back, but, going through individually and figuring out which one, don't sweat that. The fact is, you're not going to get the same follow back rate when you just start following through the followers of a search engine. You're not. They're not going to follow back at the same rate. On the other hand, the ones that follow back are much more likely to actually be real humans that pay attention, real humans that retweet, real humans that push buttons and do all of the other stuff that you want. And so, early on, if you don't have any following and stuff like that, using the Team Follow Back members as feeders, not a bad idea early on. But in the long run, I think you're going to find a smaller audience made up of real humans is going to be a lot more productive for you. And by the way, you can sort of assess for any Twitter account that you're looking at as a potential feeder, just by doing a Twitter search right there on Twitter. Just type in RT and then type in their handle. Don't put the @ in, just RT SE Land, for example, or F Engine Land, or whatever their thing is. I think it's Engine Land. Well, we'll see in just a minute here. So here I just go to Twitter, type in RT Engine Land, and I get a list of tweets, right? Now, it'll show you by default the top tweets. You can also click the button that says all, and you'll see a few more. These are only going to be recent. It's not going to be all of the tweets from all time because Twitter search just doesn't want to work like that. But the first two that you see here are pretty interesting. First of all, okay, you see Search Engine Land retweeting someone else, Rusty Brick. That's Barry Schwartz. That's his handle he's been using. That's the name of his company, his development company. But Barry Schwartz is the editor of Search Engine Roundtable. He's got some kind of editorial relationship with Search Engine Land. But there you go. Search Engine Land is retweeting Rusty Brick, Barry Schwartz. And by the way, it's been retweeted 9 times by other people too. Okay. Well, that's nice. So this tells you a couple of things. First of all, you might want to make friends with Barry, Rusty Brick. Like follow him, start chatting with him, make friends with him, because when he pushes something out there, it's likely to get retweeted by Search Engine Land to 136,424 actual humans. Some of them will actually be online and looking at it when they do that, okay? And then also Matt McGee. Well, what's interesting about Matt McGee? Well, Matt's interesting in a lot of ways. He's a nice guy. But Matt is retweeting Search Engine Land's tweet, okay? Well, and he also has an editorial relationship. But if you go down the list here, you'd see a bunch of people that don't have any business relationship with Search Engine Land retweeting stuff that Search Engine Land posted. Why is that interesting? Because those people are retweeters, and you'd like them to be in your audience and retweeting your stuff. So as you're publishing your own original feature-length content, and if those people are following you, those people are part of your audience. So who do I want to actually engage with and retweet their stuff and make them feel good and stuff like that, and do a little bit of extra stuff to get some of them to follow me. People like Matt McGee are the ones that you want to be on your list. People that are retweeting, these feeders' content to their own audience could also be retweeting your stuff to that audience. And so, how far and how deep you want to go into following people and engaging with people and stuff like that on Twitter, it's not something I can promise you is going to have a huge sales benefit off the bat, but it's the kind of stuff that can help you accelerate the process of building an audience. And so how much are you willing to invest in building an audience? I would hope it's more than nothing, and I would hope it's more than the bare minimum. But if you just do the bare minimum stuff that we teach you to do in LO3, which is add value, find conversations, follow people, and just keep going, building an audience, you will build an audience. But if you can meet up with Matt McGee and other people that are, influential tweeters and stuff like that and buy them beers at search engine conferences and whatever it takes to make friends, that'll help you get ahead in the search engine industry. So that is the end of my formal presentation. So we will have some time for hopefully a few questions here. This is number 5, the market case studies, the LO3 implementation guide. There will be a video released with that tomorrow, along with the PDF. The video just kind of explains some of the things that are in there. A lot of people have asked, can I have a diagram of the entire link liberation 3 process and what happens and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in a lot of different places. And so one of the things that I'll show you in that video tomorrow is kind of how you can explain what happens to clients. Mapping out the entire internet as a diagram, which is basically what we'll be talking about doing. People are clicking here and some of them are sharing. And so we're not going to do that because that is of no use to you. But anyway, so we'll have the video guide, which explains the diagrams and how you can use them in communicating with clients and internal stakeholders and your cousin that you're trying to get to do work and stuff like that. But for the most part, the implementation guide is kind of step-by-step checklist in terms of how to implement the workflows and stuff like that. So it's a companion piece to what's taught in the video training. It is not something that works as a standalone at all, but it's a way to, when you've got a project that you want to work on with a client, make sure that you're not skipping any steps. So, Andrea, do we have any questions and stuff that people wanted to access now that are relevant to the topic at hand?
Yeah, we sure do. Okay, so since you talked about Twitter, I'm going to ask you a couple of Twitter questions. One, we've got some people that are newer to the course, and I just want to make sure that they really understand very, very clearly why we start with Twitter and why we kind of emphasize that.
Okay, well, I think that's one of the first things in week one is why we're using Twitter. But the thing with Twitter is that it is uniquely suited for building an audience without having an audience to start with. You can build an audience with nothing but the ability to recognize and find good information on the web and to be able to link to it, which you can just go, copy the address from the address box in the bar at the top of the browser and tweet that out. But that feeder strategy that we showed you, on Facebook, I can target fans of search engine land. So I can target people that like search engine land. You know what I have to do for that though? I got to advertise. I've got to pay in order to even show them an ad for stuff. On Twitter, their followers are sitting right there. Can I go get them all? No, I can't. Sorry. But what I can do is leverage the investment that search engine land is making in content and leverage the investment that search engine land is making in marketing their business, leverage the monetization that search engine land is giving up by having their big social follow box at the top right of every page. Okay, right? Search engine land could be selling tickets to the SMX conferences, stuff like that, but their most wanted response on their website is social following. Okay, so I can leverage that investment by following their followers and engaging with the people that are actually sharing their content so that I can get a bigger audience faster and make the audience that I have more effective as a marketing engine for me. Twitter is uniquely suited as a marketing channel to be able to start and build an audience from scratch. Is it possible that someday they'll change something or they'll make everybody's followers invisible? I don't know. Right? They can do anything they want to. They own the damn thing. But right now, Twitter is just unique in terms of the low level of effort that it takes to add significant value. And if you can find 5 really good pieces of content every day to share on Twitter, you can add a lot of value for a lot of people. And everything else is just mechanical, pushing follow buttons and stuff like that. So that's why Twitter is that it's such an easy channel to build an audience in. And by the way, it's also a channel that a lot of people use to discover information. So you're going to get a lot of clicks. The other super cool thing about Twitter is it's very, very normal to get more retweets than clicks on content. Well, maybe not that, but a lot of the people that will retweet your tweet that links to your content didn't actually click the link and read your content, because as you become a trusted source of high quality stuff, if I see a friend of mine that I know is super smart and they're tweeting out a link that says my take on this, I'm probably just going to retweet and go read their take on it later. But first, I'm going to tell people about it. And so you see that a lot. And there's been a little bit of a brouhaha in the search engine marketing world about that because, the inbound marketing guys are making big hay out of the fact that they've discovered this amazing phenomenon that sometimes people retweet stuff without clicking it. But, they're making a big hay out of something that we all thought was just normal behavior everybody understood. But anyway, that's why Twitter. Twitter is just, there are a few things that you can change, like relax the API restrictions so that we could do some of the workflow stuff that we do more easily. But fundamentally, Twitter is almost like the dream social machine for what we're trying to do here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm just reading over the questions, and I keep seeing the same thing, and I'm going to post a link here to an article I wrote called A Walking Psychographic, because what I think is going on here is what I see over and over, and it's that people think like business owners. They don't think like their consumers. So Jeff says, I don't get clout. I'm having problems finding influencers in my market, which is surveillance, security, nanny cams, and hidden cameras, etc. But Chief Andy's talking about his products, right?
Let's stop down right now and talk about that market. Okay,
yes.
So pick a topic that people are out there talking about. So I would imagine that there are actually some people talking about home security, the ultra paranoid people. It might be gun people, or I don't know. But there's an audience out there. They're not talking about alarm systems, okay? I mean, the installers are, maybe. If there's any of them actually talking to each other online, you might be able to find them. But, alarm systems like that, that's what you sell, great. But that's not what you want to be talking about on the internet. This is actually something that we've talked about so many times. I know we had one in the other webinar that we did. But pick anything. Pick anything and build an audience, and you're better off than not building an audience. And so, there's people, the home automation things where, people are into that and talk about home automation a lot. And, you happen to sell alarm systems that, people that want to spend a bunch of extra money on junk for their home. If you're targeting the home market, if you're talking, I don't know who you're targeting, but figure out how to find a group of people out there and join in the conversations and add value. You're not taking them to the homepage of your store when you do that. You're taking them, to a site, a section of the site, a blog, whatever that has got stuff that they're interested in, and find feeders, find the folks that are out there that have an audience around that topic. Go grab some of their audience and start building your own audience.
Right.
You don't need to sell stuff to people on Twitter. You need to build an audience on Twitter.
Right. So the people that are asking about the car market and Disney vacations and stuff like that, the exact same thing applies. Just watch that customer avatar video, pick a customer avatar, and talk to that person. Start there, build out that audience. So, like, for example, with Disney vacations, I did this exercise with a gentleman a few years ago, and it turns out that one of his best customers is a 40-something-year-old man who feels a lot of guilt about not spending time with his kids. And he makes, a reasonable amount of money. And how hard is it really to target 40-something-year-olds that are, make a certain level of income? What kinds of things are they going to be reading? What are they going to be interested in? I mean, it's not that hard if you think of it in those terms. Don't try to sell a car to everybody. Sell a car to a segment of the market, right?
Yeah, and in the case, in the case of what we're doing here in OL3, don't try to sell anything to anybody. I mean, if you can make more money than you spend feeding content to the machine, and once you've got it built, once you've reached that state of critical mass where the audience grows itself, and all you have to do is feed it content, you can look at that as, what does it cost me every month to produce the content? And when you reach that state, it'd be awfully weird if you weren't actually able to make enough back simply from advertising, just with like AdSense, to be able to pay what it costs to produce the content. We want links and stuff like that, but what I'd like for everybody to be able to get to is a state where they don't have to buy the links. It's not the monthly link building bill comes due, and oh gosh, business was slow. Our website was down for 2 days. We can't afford to buy links this month. We have to turn off all of our link rentals. Well, that's going to look really good at Google, isn't it? If you manage to actually rent links that aren't being sniffed out and whiffed out and penalizing you anyway. But to get to a state where, I don't have to get rich by link building, but, gosh, if we can make it break even, that's pretty cool. Then we can get infinity number of links for free almost. And so, I don't know how many other more ways I can say it. This is not about finding somebody to sell stuff to. Okay, if you can, that's nice, right? If it happens to work out that way, that's nice. But don't go into this with that as your goal. Your goal is to build an audience, drive traffic, get people to click buttons, get links, build authority for your website. That's the goal.
Okay, here's a funny question. Why do I get a feeling Dan doesn't like babies?
I have nothing against babies. So if I don't like babies, they mean I don't want to have any. Yes, I don't want to have any babies. But, if you brought a baby to me and said, hey, look at my baby, I'd be nice to your baby and make, those noises that we seem to have to make when there's a baby around. It's weird because, like, really, like, for the baby's good, we should just speak English at them or whatever language it is normally, so that they can learn faster, learn how to talk faster, and therefore they'll be able to learn everything faster later in life, by the way. But I'll do the same. Completely screws up.
I think I'll keep my babies away from you.
Not talk right when you do that. Okay, you're ruining the kid. But that's what I would.
All right, let's keep going.
If I were a politician, yes, I'd probably be the one that accidentally kisses hands and shakes babies, because it's hard to remember what order those things happen in. Anyway.
All right, let's keep going. This is a great question for all of the people out there that do local consulting. Richard says, my site is country specific. I live outside the U.S. in a much smaller country, and sales will come from this country. Does it matter if I build an audience outside of my country? Dan?
I'm trying to understand that, so let's do that again slowly.
All right, let's pretend we're talking Los Angeles. My site is he says country specific. He lives outside the U.S. Okay, hold on. I'm going to take out all the parts we don't need to know. Okay, so he lives in a country. His sales come from within that country. Does he need to build an audience outside of his country?
I don't think it hurts to be able to build an audience outside of the country. But there are some things that, because of the round planet and stuff like that, and irrational jingoism, nationalism, all the other stuff that goes in. So it's interesting that you find the Australian people that are more or less publishing the same content and talking about the same stuff, their audience still skews toward the country that they're in. And one of the reasons why is that, just as we're getting ready to be done for the day, Australia is just getting ready to start rolling for the day. So the time of day that you're sending out tweets and sending out emails and all that other stuff, times of day that you're on Facebook, times of day that you're engaging and talking with people socially, are different depending on what country you're in and where you are. So you're going to see a little bit of a trend toward kind of a local bias just because of that. That Ed Dale puts out tweets at noon in Australia, and I'm asleep when he does that, so I never see it. And so he's going to kind of bias towards Australia just because that's when his stuff is going out. But does it matter if the audience is local or international? Not so much in terms of what we're trying to do. But you're going to find that there are probably ways, there are going to be, particularly in things like forums and things like that, and there are going to be publications that are based, nationally based, that you might find that their audience is much more skewed. And so it's not a bad thing, obviously, if you're getting clients from within the country to build an audience, and at least make some effort to get more of the audience from in country. But there's no harm in people outside of the country following you and retweeting you and all that kind of stuff. It just adds more traffic, more button pushing, more links in the end.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for that. All right. Talking about tiers 1, 2, and 3, you'll be able to watch the replay within a day or two. So I'm not going to actually have to undo that right now. And let's see. People are asking, of course, Dan, about different tools and stuff that you use. And you talked about this other times, but maybe just briefly talk about why you use the tools that you use rather than Hootsuite and whatever else is out there.
I don't like Hootsuite personally because it's so massively complicated compared to the very simple approach that I use. I'm going to kind of talk about something that I'm not fully prepared to deliver a training on, but as part of the productivity series that I'm working on for the public site, going probably a few weeks before that starts. But one of the things that a lot of people struggle kind of as single person entrepreneurs or as consultants that are managing lots of different clients and stuff like that. They struggle with their computer environment. They've got all of this stuff and so gosh, how do I manage gosh, we got 50 clients. How do I manage, 50 if this and that accounts and 50 buffer accounts, stuff like that? I personally find that kind of stuff is easier to manage. And so in the context of having different business roles or different projects that you're working on. So I've got, a number of different projects that I want to work on. I have a number of different roles in my business. And one of the ways that I found it's very effective to separate that stuff is to actually have a different login on the computer. So, for example, if I had a client that's a car dealer and I had a client that's a Penguin washing service, and I've got a client that's Penguin washing service, and I've got a client that sells baby shoes. I do have a client that sells baby shoes right now temporarily, but what I'm going to have is basically a separate computer login. So I'm going to log into that baby shoes account on my computer to do stuff with the baby shoe account, which means that all of the passwords for all the accounts are stored in my browser there. I can have a set of tabs in my browser that I launch the browser and automatically opens up with a set of tabs that has the Twitter for those guys, the Facebook for those guys, all the other stuff, and so it's click, 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 maybe do a few logins, and I'm in business as the consultant for that client, and then I can work that stuff there. Then I just log out and switch to a different role, and that means that, gosh, there might be 100 passwords associated with that client, but I don't care because they're all stored in the browser or in 1Password or something like that, and they're stored in that database that user has. So that it's not, to me, a huge challenge to manage all that stuff. And yeah, you probably want to write it down on a piece of paper somewhere. Yeah, if you're not confident in your digital backups and stuff like that. But there are lots of ways to manage the complexity of multiple accounts that sort of take away some of the burden of dealing with really simple tools. Hootsuite is like, if I ran an agency kind of thing where I had lots of people doing lots of things for lots of clients, or an in-house deal for a big brand, yeah, Hootsuite, okay, you got all, you can have multiple users and you can group them and all that kind of stuff. That's great. Right now, to me, the only thing that Hootsuite gives me that I can't get anywhere else is the ability to automatically post to Google Plus through an API. That's it. And so, I've spent some time with MarketMe Suite, and I just haven't found that it does a whole lot more for me than just using something like TweetDeck or any of the other apps that lets you look at multiple different views on Twitter and stuff like that. And you can do the same thing in Hootsuite where you log into it and you can see the mentions and maybe content from a list and stuff like that. But if those tools work for you and they accomplish something that you want to accomplish, that's great. I'm not saying that they're bad tools, because there's lots of good tools. I just haven't found that for what I do that any of them are worth the effort of the high upfront cost of implementing it in workflows, and then the ongoing cost of, okay, they changed this feature, they redid the UI. Oh my God, where is everything? The UI that I deal with Buffer, I never even see Buffer unless I have to go in there and log in and reorder something. Outside of that, I don't even know what Buffer looks like on their website.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. So we've got a few people asking about like the tipping point. When does this kind of take off and go on its own? I don't know what your experience, again, is, but I'm so thankful that I listened to you guys back in the day. And with my business Twitter account, I've got, I think, 78,000 followers, and I get new ones every single day, and they like me and retweet me. And
all you have to do is feed it content, right?
Should I say that again?
Pretty much all you have to do is feed it content and occasionally do some stuff that makes you look like a real human.
That's exactly right.
We all know that Andrea is actually a bot. But
I'm really not a bot. But yeah, I've got some great content that I post on there automatically, and I show up, I try to 2 or 3 times a week, and just retweet people and say things about the weather and talk about personal experiences. Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't show up for a week and you kept feeding it content, because that's all automated, right? I mean somebody's picking content somewhere, but you don't have to be there every day doing that. Somebody else can do that.
And heavens no! So I'm lucky if I spend half an hour a month.
is feed it content. And if you didn't show up for a week or you didn't show up for a month, your audience will keep growing. Right. And so, how do you get there faster? Well, you can do higher quality content. You can invest the time in actually building relationships with people that can help you grow your audience. You can get, super aggressive about the following campaign. And you can do a whole bunch more of that. You can push it all the way up to the limit of what Twitter will tolerate. But fundamentally, it's something that it takes time. It takes an investment in quality, and that's every time I get the what's the least I can do question. I don't pull out my hair because that will happen by itself over time. But it's frustrating for me personally because we've tried to explain this in as many ways as we can that you're investing right now in relationship building. You're investing right now in a lot of things that you're not going to have to do forever. And it's not that they won't be good, productive things to do, 6 months down the road. But what you'd like to do is get to a place where you don't have to do that anymore. Right? You could take a break if the person that's doing it, quits, and it takes you 3 weeks to hire a replacement. As long as you keep the content flowing, your audience is growing. And if you completely stopped putting any content into your machine, Andrea, right? What happens? Well, your audience stops growing, but It's not like it's going to disappear. And if you show up again in 3 weeks, then life is still going to be good. And so,
Do you want to hear a little? Do you want to hear a content secret, Dan?
Sure.
I don't know if this is going to be Dan approved or not, but back in 2008, 2009, I spent a lot of time getting content together, and I recycle it every 6 months or so. So I have some timeless, tips and quotes and stuff like that, and I just republish them every 6 months.
Yeah, and the only hard thing about that is, depending on the nature of the content, is, does the content become obsolete? Like Grey Wolf, Michael Gray, who's, like a friend and stuff, but, Michael uses this tweet old post thing. And so, sometimes you'll see a tweet come from him, which, if you didn't squint and notice that it was his plugin sending the stuff out, it's like, wait a minute. Okay. It's really like the do follow, manifesto is really not relevant at this point in the world, Mike. But it's going out because it's being pushed out by machines. That's the main thing with that kind of stuff is just if you're going to automate stuff, that doesn't mean you completely just abdicate all responsibility for the content. If you got stuff that's evergreen. You could send me a link to the same thing every 3 months, every 6 months, and even if I know I've seen it before, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to read it. And more importantly, if I've already read it, there's a really good chance that I'm going to retweet it to other people that are interested in the same topic.
Right. Yep, you got it. Anyway, that's really made my life a lot easier. I spent a lot of time up front with the content, and like I said, now I show up maybe 30 minutes total a month. Okay, let's look at a couple other questions. Another quick tool question from David. What's the best time to set tweets in Buffer during business hours or outside business hours? Does the Buffer tell you? Is it Buffer that tells you the best time? I can't remember.
No, but if you really want to super hyper optimize that, the other thing you do is just if you got if you're going to send out 10 things a day through Buffer, is just get them scheduled out from morning to night. But there's actually a tool out there called Tweriod, Tweriod, that lets you basically you can run a report on your followers and figure out what times of day they're on. What times of day more people are on and active. But okay, gosh, I've only got 18 followers. That's not going to work very well, right? So it's something that over time you're going to have to kind of touch base with periodically if you really want to like hyper optimize at that level. I'm not sure that that's really that big of a deal because most people are not following so many that they can't actually see most of what's going on. Most people, their experience with Twitter is they can log in and look at every single tweet that the people that they follow have sent out since the last time that they logged in. Now, I'm following 500 people or whatever on my Twitter, and so I just catch the most recent stuff typically, and do a little bit of interaction with people and then move on. But that's my personal Twitter, not the brand Twitter. But I just don't know that it's that big of a deal, and I've yet to see anybody ever show any kind of conclusive data that says like trying to hyper optimize what time of day you send out tweets and is going to make a big difference in anybody's life.
Okay, all right, Dan. I think let's close with this question. It's a doozy. It's a good one. And then we have a bunch more questions, and we have a full-on Q&A session next week. And I'm going to post a link for that in the chat right now so that you all have it. And Dan, would you mind typing in the name of that tool that you mentioned for analyzing Twitter? Let's see. Okay, there's the link for next week. Somebody requested.
Okay, where do I type it? In the chat thing?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so.
Sorry. You were a tiny bit muffled. There we go. Okay, now I'll give that to everyone. Okay, now, all right, so here's the question. This is a big picture question. It's shocking to me now when I hear people talking about link building as an actual thing that they do. But this is a question. So we build a large audience via Twitter, et cetera, and then produce good content for them, which builds trust and authority with the audience. I understand that part. Some of that tweeted content is on my site, so this increases traffic to my site. When they click my tweeted links, I get that. But when and where are links to my site being created?
When people put them there. I mean, the button pushing, all that social sharing leaks out into links in a lot of different ways. And some people are actually going to talk about you, blog about you, all that kind of stuff. The thing is, Google's definition of a natural link is somebody saw something and decided to link to it. Google's definition of a natural link doesn't even include you sending people emails and calling them on the phone and begging them to link to you, by the way. There's nothing they can do about that, but they're not. That's not really what they want, to influence their rankings. What they really want is people on their own volition deciding that they want to make a link. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do outreach and other stuff like that, but that's something that you do at the end of the process. If I want to write a guest blog post for anything in search, other than like that one person that hates me, I can do that, right? And I can get anybody in search. I can reach out and say, hey, here's this good thing I have that, can you please tell your readers about it? Please link to it. The answer on that's going to almost always be yes. Why? Because I have an audience. And if I didn't have an audience, it would not be like that. But it's not that you never do any kind of outreach or anything like that. It's just that your alternatives right now are begging for links, which is slow and inefficient and greatly aided if you have an audience, right? So if I'm going to do a piece of link bait, okay, and nobody knows about it unless I beg them to link to it or pay them to link to it. Okay, well, I just did something like I shouldn't be doing when I paid for it. But that's the thing that struck me at the SEO Moz event last year was all these people talking about inbound marketing that weren't using that to help them get links. The fact is, some percentage of the people that see your content can give it a link, and it's all up. It's a double-digit number there. The percentage of people that could give you a link, and so the more times you have somebody in front of something that could give you a link, and it's something that they want to link to, the more links you're going to get. Trying to actually individually place each link on the internet it's a losing proposition. I'm not saying you should never do it, but if that's all you do, you're going to fall behind the people that you'll fall behind the people that don't go out to try to get links at all if they're doing this stuff right.
So the really cool thing about building an audience is that you're not relying on Google. You're not relying on links. And you can wake up in the morning and not have to check your rankings and have your heart skip a beat when you see what's happened or when you're worried about what's happened. I mean, building an audience really is it's it. That's the way to go.
You can look at SEOfaststart.com. Tens of thousands of natural links. I've never asked anybody for I did, on a couple of occasions where we were, breaking a story of some significance, let people with large audiences know what was coming and when it was coming, if they wanted to talk about it. And that's a chunk of links, but it's not the majority of the links that I've gotten by any means. It's just a chunk of links. I mean, 1,000 links or something for the Google proxy hacking story that came out of the launching, the marketing of that as an event. So it got mentioned in pretty much every channel that reaches search marketers. And that wasn't something where, I did this link bait without doing, event marketing around it. I mean, I in advance figured out who could get the word out and talk to those people. But, the number of people I talked to was a couple of dozen, and they didn't produce thousand and change links themselves, right? They produced a couple dozen. The rest of them came from the people that they were talking to, from their audience.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so Dan, there's lots of other really great questions, and I will get those to you before our webinar next Tuesday. And is there anything else that you want to go over before we leave tonight?
No, I think we're good.
All right, great. So I hope these examples help clarify this concept in your head of the different market tiers. And
for the folks that are new, definitely watch the other one, which is about an equal length. Me and Leslie just doing nothing but one business after another and different kinds of topics and things like that you can do. Or don't. I mean, if you've got an idea, you don't need to watch that. But if you're just like I just can't think of anything I could possibly talk about. You can watch that video, and then again, in the comments below this video, when it lands in the portal, you can say, here's what I do, here's where my site is, give me some topic ideas, and we'll continue to do that.
Great. Okay, so I will get these questions to Dan, and remember support at SEO Brain Trust if you have any questions about your account or anything. We've got a couple of those, and I think that's all. We'll be back next Tuesday. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks, Andrea.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you.